Live from an attic somewhere in the north, this is The Late Show with Tom Starkey.
Good evening, everybody. I am on about the humble Office 365 tonight. From that really annoying paper clippy fella that used to come up to the present day, we'll be having a bit of a deep dive, having a look at some of the features that might be really useful for educators and the people that you educate. So stick around and let's get on it. What was his name? What was its name? Clip.
Live from an attic somewhere in the north, this is The Late Show with Tom Starkey. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
This news just in from an attic somewhere in Leeds. It's freezing. It's absolutely freezing. Good evening, producer Tom. Thank you very much for. Oh my gosh! It is cold. Shall I just do a whole show about how cold I am? I'm in my attic, and we are being as frugal as we possibly can. And so we've not got the heating on. I can see my breath. I had to take off my. I've been wearing a coat, like a puffer coat, SE13 London. Got to have that puffer coat on, represent Blueborough. But because the mic I'm using is really sensitive, every time I move around with that thing on, it goes. And and I'm not too sure about the technology as it is. I don't really want kind of all over the shop, so I've had to take that off. So this is what I do. These are the personal sacrifices that I make for TT Radio. I was thinking about, the organization in general, TT Radio, and I was thinking about teaching and how tribal teaching can be sometimes when it comes to ideologies and when it comes to viewpoints, progressive versus traditional. We've got primary versus secondary. We've got this idea versus that idea, and never the twain shall meet. But not here. No. I've had a look down the playlist for today's shows and last week's shows. There is an all manner. It's a many and varied church here at TT Radio, possibly one of the only organizations that does have people from every point of the spectrum having their say, and teachers having their say, and that can only be a good thing. Varied viewpoints are extremely, extremely important when it comes to education and when it comes to, children. They are the world, and not being stuck in an echo chamber, not just listening to people who agree with you and nodding away. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Oh yeah, we love you. We love you. It's great. I think one of the things is that I have to keep myself fairly separate. And I wish I was a bit more community minded when it comes to this here radio project, but I'm not. I'm not. I'm turning into kind of a grumpy, lonesome man, and sometimes I can't be doing with talking to people and being social or civil. Can't be doing with it. But seriously, I had a quick listen to the shows. So much information, so much great stuff with such varied viewpoints, and it's that I find really, really, really interesting because, I'm education adjacent at best. You know what I mean? I'm not a teacher. I do some teaching, but I'm not a teacher. How easy it is to say that. I don't understand why more people don't. I'm an ex-teacher, but just the wealth of expertise that is on Teacher Talk Radio, the wealth of expertise, the different viewpoints, and just like authentic knowledge. Well, there are some filters. I mean, I can't like just start kind of swearing and being horrible and that. Well, it depends if I've had a drink or not. But just the varied viewpoints, no filter, real authentic teacher knowledge, right? Really, really good discussions about really good subjects. So, I'm not trying to big up my platform too much, but my goodness me, I'm so impressed. If you do get a chance, just have a listen during the day. Have a listen live on Podbean Live. Have a listen to the recorded. Have a listen to the recorded show. Have a listen to the podcast and the downloads, and try and have a listen to something that you wouldn't usually. Because I've been recently getting into the whole podcast thing, seeing as I'm like a technological guru and I'm so in front of the curve. I've only just started listening to podcasts, mostly to do with novel writing, which is sometimes I listen to podcasts to try to learn something, but most of the time I listen to podcasts so I can sleep. But anyway, not in this case. Yeah, just really, really impressed. Big boss man, Tom, I love you, mate. Tom, I love you too, man. I love you too. Look how beautiful is this on a Sunday evening? We can just spread the positive vibes before the last week of teaching for many of you out there. Well done for making it this far. I'm not being funny. Ever since I left teaching, I look back and I think, how did I do that? And I still think that for people who are in the position in front of kids every day. It's like, yeah, absolute heroes. I mean, I'm in front of students and I'm in front of academics. And, I can go to the toilet when I want. I've got a stationery cupboard that I don't even need to sign things out for. They just let me take pens. I know, right? I know. It's just, it is fabulous. But speaking as someone with 2 kids in primary and secondary, thank you very much, teachers out there. You've done a fantastic job. You've done brilliant making it this far. So yeah, that's a very positive note for me. Usually I'm just like I'm cynical as anything, but I'm feeling the love tonight. I'm feeling the love. Tonight's subject is, I thought to myself, this is, I'll tell you why this is tonight's subject, and this is the reason why I'm looking at it in quite a lot of detail. So, my job is an assistive technology advisor. I point people towards things that might help these people. Sometimes are disabled, sometimes they're not. It could be anything from physical disability, mobility issues, ADHD, dyslexia, and so on and so forth. And recently, I mean, this hasn't happened in the past, but recently, I've been recommending software that isn't marketed as assistive technology quite a lot. And for me, as a philosophical change when it comes to companies taking note of the marginalized in society, in this case, people with disabilities, it's a positive thing for me. It's a fantastic thing that I have a range of things that I can recommend that are specifically assistive technology and have been created as such. But now I'm recommending things that are kind of just everyday technologies that have integrated assistive technology built in. Sorry, I've got my microphone on my table, and if I move my leg onto the table, it makes this kind of sound. So all apologies. I'll try and be absolutely still as much as I can after having 2 coffees, and I'm about to crack open an energy drink as well, just to make sure that I make it to the end of the show. But yeah, so today's topic, today's software, the program we're going to be looking at is Office 365. I would like to point out that I'm not sponsored by any companies. This is purely my own as someone whose profession it is to judge assistive technology, so I can recommend it to students. That's where this is coming from. But, spoiler alert, the Office 365 package, in my opinion, over the last couple of years, has come on leaps and bounds in regards to assistive technology. Back in the day, and we're going to talk a little bit about, well, this is the thing. In my introduction, we're going to talk about Word a lot, because Word is one of those programs that has just been everywhere forever. As a word processor, Word has been just it just seems to be on every Windows computer, and you have to go quite a long way, or you have to look into things quite deeply to get away from Word as a way to type stuff out. It's not my favorite word processor, by the way. I'm not. I'm very big on the whole distraction-free technology, because when it comes to some of the things that Word is still very, very busy. For someone who actually just wants to sit and write and not get distracted and not have to worry about things like font style and all those different types of things. Word isn't great for that. There are some iterations now that have a distraction-free view, but yeah, I mean, I prefer distraction-free word processors. The one I'm using at the moment is called Big Huge Labs Internet Typewriter, which looks like a 1980s electronic typewriter screen. It's great. I really, really like it. It makes tappy noises on the keys. But anyway, I digress. Word's been with us for time. Ever since that bloody paperclip kept popping up. I've never had so much hatred for technology. That paperclip just, oh my goodness me! I understand what that paperclip was about. What was that paperclip called? I can't remember. If you can remember what the paperclip thing was called, tell me on the chat, or tweet it at TT Radio 2022. For the life of me, I cannot remember what it was. I'm assuming it's something really, really kind of really, really original, like Clippy or something. If it's Clippy, I'm going to be really, really disappointed. But yeah, ever since that fella turned up, it was either the paperclip or the dog. Either one, really, really annoying. And it's like, oh, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to? Is this what you want to do? And I was like, by the end of it, by the end of that kind of struggle session, I didn't know. The paperclip just threw me. I'm thinking maybe that's what it was there for. But over time, Office 365 is the current. I'm going to be looking and kind of talking about the online free version, because there are other facilities on paid for versions, but I'm going to look at the things that everybody could have access to if you enter your email into Office 365, and having a look at some of the things that may not be immediately obvious. How long, how often do educators have the time to just sit down and just press on some of these things in the ribbon that you might see every single day? You might sit down, oh, got to write this report, and you just tend to crack on. You just tend to get typing. And there's not very much time to kind of have a deep dive into this kind of software, because it's a very utilitarian tool, as it were. I'm saying as it were again. I don't know why I do that, but it makes me sound half decent. So when it comes to Office 365, we'll concentrate on a couple of products today, a couple of programs. We're going to concentrate on Word and PowerPoint, and then we're going to concentrate on a couple of other programs next week. I think it's next week. Yes, next week. Excel and whatever's left, because Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. Those are the three big ones. Those are the big hitters. Those are the bully boys of the Office 365 package. But there are some other really useful tools. And for balance, I'm sure in the future I'm going to be looking in detail at other very similar packages, such as we've got all of the Google tools. And other more independent word processors, more independent things like that. But for the moment, we're just going to concentrate on Office 365. It's fairly ubiquitous. It's using a fair few places, isn't it? Really, it's one of those things that it always pops up. So I thought, let's have a little bit of a deep dive into it. Let's have a little look and see what it can do, and look and see at some of the things that may not be immediately obvious when it comes to this program. Some of the things I'm going to mention tonight are going to be very useful for staff, students who have things like dyslexia. Some of the things are useful. Well, along with those things, as I've always said, inclusive practice is best practice. So these things are useful for everybody. But in particular, if you have students who are on particular spectrums or have certain disabilities, these things that I point out today might be pretty useful. And when it comes to PowerPoint, PowerPoint goes hand in hand with public speaking. And we know how much students love public speaking. Well, they love public speaking when they ain't supposed to do it. They love public speaking when you're like halfway through a lesson and you're like, hey, Ryan. But when it comes to actually formal public speaking, it can be quite problematic in the classroom. So we're going to have a look at a little tool with the online version of PowerPoint that can take some of that anxiety away. So anyway, let's have a look at our first tools. It's It's a shame that I'm not on a video feed. I could do like a screencast. No, I'm not going to do that. It's too much like my job. That's what I kind of do on my everyday job. But anyway, so you got Word, and everybody knows what that Word. Everybody knows, everybody knows what it looks like. It's got that, that white and blue theme going on. It's just like you can recognize it a mile. No, you wouldn't be recognizing it a mile off because it'd be a tiny little screen. But if you saw it, you knew it. You'd know Word because everybody's familiar with Word. Now, when it comes to the way that it looks, the online version of Word also has a dark mode. Dark mode's really important in many cases when it comes to things like eye strain, when it comes to things like reducing contrast, when it comes to things like reducing electricity costs. Well, this is, as I sit here shivering in my attic, dark mode means that the less power is used. But yeah, Word and other Office 365 products have a dark mode, which basically inverts the colors. Has turns everything black with white text rather than white with black text. Well, wow, so what? So what? You might be saying, if you ask, don't be so rude. But as I say, dark mode means that if you use the kind of default function, everything is white. Everything is really, really, really bright on the screen. And that can be problematic. That can be problematic with for people with certain visual impairments. White on black is a pretty awful. Sorry, is that it? No. Black on white. So black text on a white background is a pretty awful color contrast in regards to accessibility in general. If you're kind of interested in that kind of thing. Unfortunately, there's no golden rule when it comes to text background color schemes, because of course everybody is different. So you'll never hit the golden mix of text color and background color. But in general, and here's today's tip from the resident expert in regards to accessibility. If you want to cover as many bases as you can when it comes to creating an accessible document, creating an accessible PowerPoint, so on and so forth, color contrast is just something that you have to kind of have a look at. But black text on an off-white background is pretty much the kind of that's going to cover the most bases when it comes to accessibility. But dark mode, if you have, and this is what I'm seeing from my students, and the request from my students quite a lot is working on the screen leads to greater eye strain than working with physical materials. And I have students who have been through years now of remote working and spend an inordinate amount of the day looking at the screen. I do too. I use dark mode in my own computers, because I've got dark mode on my Podbean thingamadooga here, and then I've got the actual document up on my two screens, because two screens is the way forward. If you haven't tried using two screens and you've got the capability, give it a go, because it has a game changer. It can do so much. But and the white from the page on Word is just it's glaring. It's really, really glaring. And I'm sat in a kind of a darkened room. And so, yeah, dark mode. You've got dark mode in Office 365. You've got dark mode in Word. And it means that you can just kind of just give your eyes a little bit of a rest when needed. A simple thing, but can be extremely, extremely handy. We're going to stick with Word, and I'm going to talk about a couple of features that you may have come across. I mean, if you are looking at the Office 365 Word version of these things, the things are fairly obvious, but you might not know what they are. You don't tend to, like I say, you don't tend to sit there and just press every single button on your ribbon. I mean, who has time, you know? But one of the best features, in my opinion, when it comes to the online version of Word is the dictation feature. I've talked about dictation endlessly, and dictation is one of the largest recommendations that I give to students, because it covers things like mobility issues. It covers some of the issues that are linked to dyslexia. It covers my horribly slow typing speed. I mean, I used to write for a living. It used to be my job, and I'm there. I might as well have just used my elbows. My typing speed is atrocious. The dictation feature in the online version of Word is really, really good. As is the case with dictation, in every single point, that it's not perfect, but then neither is typing. People have that thing about, oh well, it's made a mistake with the word. It's like, you never made a mistake typing. I recommend the dictation feature of Word quite a lot, and that for me goes to show, because I care about my job, and I care about the recommendations that I make, and I try not to make duff recommendations. Some of the things that I think about when I'm recommending assistive technology is whether it's robust, whether it works every time, whether it's easy to use, these things. And in the case of the dictation feature in Word, it is. So if you open up a Word document, it's a little blue microphone. On the right-hand side, usually, and you press it, it goes ping, and you can speak into the computer, and it will type what you write. Now, these things are effective. This is not 100%. It's not, in many cases, accuracy is affected by certain things, such as sound source. If it's much better to use a designated microphone than it is like a laptop mic, but it does the job if you only have access to a laptop mic or whatever's built into your computer. Accent really, really affects the accuracy of dictation. I'm not too sure about what or where or how the algorithm works when it comes to dictation. Happily, because of my really flat southeast-ish London accent, this is not. It picks it up pretty well. I mean, for me, when it comes to accuracy, it's around about 92% every single time. How do I know that? You say, "Oi, you nerd! How do I know that?" I've actually tested it and then given it kind of a percentage. It's part of my job. So yeah, that's not. It's not. I didn't do that off the cuff. You know what I mean? I didn't think to myself on an evening, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to read this book into this thing and see how accurate it is and come up with a percentage. No, I have to do that for my job. I have to compare lots of different speech to text apps and compare them for accuracy and so on and so forth. So the dictate feature is pretty good, fairly immediate and free. It's built into the program itself. It's integrated, which is really important, I think, because, and I think I've talked about this before on the show, and it's something, in this modern world, we want to be able to ensure that everybody is comfortable with whatever way of working that they have. But it's not always the case. There's always a certain stigma in regards to using extra features to try to access, to the same extent, a program, a tool, or learning, or whatever, to the same extent as somebody who doesn't particularly need that particular tool. So there is a stigma attached. I had a conversation with somebody who uses a physical magnifier and who doesn't use a physical magnifier as much as they think they should because of the social stigma regarding using assistive technology. I had a conversation with my mum and dad. My mum and dad both are having issues walking at the moment. They're getting on a bit, bless them. And I was like, well, there's this kind of support. You can use this stick. You can use a trolley, a wheeled trolley, and push it. And it's like, no, don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Don't want to. Yeah. There's still a stigma attached to using assistive technology, in particular, visible, physical, ergonomic assistive technology, and that can really prohibit use. So, what Microsoft have seemed to have done philosophically is they've seemed to integrate the assistive technology packages within their apps. So not only is there a lack of visibility, as it were, when it comes to the use of these particular apps, it's also nice that they're thinking about ensuring everyone has access to a number of these tools, but not making a big deal of it. Just the dictate feature is right there with the font change feature, the bold or the underline feature. It's there, and it's no big deal, and you can use it. So yeah, dictate and dictation in general is one of my I love it. I absolutely love it. Not only for my students, not only for the staff, and not only for the people that I recommend it, but I love it myself. I love being able to speak, as you may have learned over the past shows. I do enjoy talking a fair bit, but I also talk at quite a fair rate. I'm quite rapid, and it picks up pretty much everything that I say. So yeah, the first feature, maybe not hugely used or maybe not hugely known about when it comes to our humble word program, is the dictate feature. And then with the dictate feature, if you're using the online version of Word, which I've got up on my screen at the moment, if you press your drop down menu, you've got the transcribe feature. Now, transcription is another fantastic. I'm sorry, it's an assistive technology. The facility to transcribe speech. Now, what's the difference between dictation and transcription? From somebody at work this week, dictation is written translation as you speak, and transcription is taking a whole block of speech and then writing it out. So Word Online has this facility to transcribe. What that means is that you can upload a audio file, or you can upload, in fact, you can upload a video file, and it rips the audio. And it will, given the quality of that file, it will write it out in Word for you. So assistive technology-wise, what that means for me and for my students is that information capture is, there's more ways to capture information. I've got many students that record lectures, record seminars, but also want a transcript of what's been said so that they can go back. They don't have to worry about listening sometimes in regards to students with certain difficulties with hearing. Students who have cognitive issues in regards to doing a number of different things at the same time, listening, taking notes, writing, and so on and so forth. You could be, you could be out on the street and you think to yourself, I'll just make a recording of some of the things that I want to do. You take it back, you upload it to Word, and it writes it for you. And I think that's great. It's just another alternative way to get information or to record information. And a lot of assistive technology, that's what it's about. It's about alternatives, finding different ways of doing things that lead to the same result. It doesn't make it any better or any worse. It's just different. The transcription feature has a limit, I think. It has something like 300 minutes a month or something along the lines. or so forth. In fact, it might actually be a premium feature. So ignore me if it is a premium feature. But the dictation feature is great. It's great for speaking into the computer, like as speaking as typing. It's also great if you just want to play a sound source into the computer and have it typed out, because it can do that as well. So that's our first little look at some of the not unknown, but some of the lesser known features perhaps of Word. And then we're going to have a quick break to have a listen to the news and words from our sponsor, and then we'll get back to it.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, a leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out! Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading!
This episode of Teachers Talk Radio has been made possible with support from Witherslack Group, the UK's leading provider of SEN education and care. They're here to support you too through an ever-growing offer of free resources, including webinars, podcasts, articles, and events aimed at supporting teaching professionals like you. Visit their website at www.witherslackgroup.co.uk to find out more. This is Teachers Talk Radio. Talk Radio News.
TES magazine reported on news that Education Secretary Gillian Keegan said that the proposed schools bill will not progress in this parliamentary session. The bill itself was originally launched in May this year and covered a range of areas including school attendance, safeguarding and new powers over multi-academy trusts. Ms Keegan spoke at the Commons Education Select Committee, confirming that the schools bill will not progress in the third session. She also said her department remained committed to the objectives and would be prioritising some aspects of the bill. Of the aspects of the bill Ms Keegan stated she wanted to focus on, she identified the need for a register to identify and account for children not in schools, as well as helping more faith schools join multi-academy trusts. One area not seen as a priority, however, was the creation of more grammar schools, with Ms Keegan stating her strong views that 93% of children will never get to go to one, and the belief that the academy structure remains the route to make the biggest difference to the most children the quickest. The Mirror Online carries a story about Labour MP Zara Sultana's proposal to widen the free school meal scheme in primary schools across England. Under the plans, all primary pupils would get access to free school meals. The current scheme for universal free school meals ends in Year 2. The article suggests that under the current plan, around 800,000 children living in poverty miss out on free meals due to the strict eligibility criteria. Ms Sultana will bring forward a bill in the coming week. The MP for Coventry South said it was a major issue when families simply can't afford everyday groceries, and that providing meals for school was another strain. She went on to point out that both Scottish and Welsh governments have plans to introduce universal free school meals, but accused the government in England of prioritising tax breaks for the wealthiest people. Warwickshire World online news site reports on the arrival of delegates from around the world to a conference focusing on developing technical education. More than 50 visitors attended the event organised by the British Council at Warwick Trident College. The college is part of the WCG group. Guests arrived from a range of countries in Africa and Asia, with delegations including government ministers and education officials. A spokesperson for the WCG said technical education is one of the key pillars of a successful developing economy, and that the hope was that delegates would take away some insights which will have a positive impact on their country's developments in technical and vocational training. The latest Sunday Times Schools Guide has been released, and many local news outlets are reporting on the successes of schools in their surrounding areas. Northern Ireland outlets report that the guide has rated 7 secondary schools in the national top 50, calling this a significant achievement in light of the nation's comparatively small population. It was acknowledged that several of the Northern Ireland schools mentioned in the list have been described as highly selective grammar schools, with the DUP's Diane Dodds noting that whilst Northern Ireland is punching above its weight, there will always be areas where improvements can be made. She went on to point out that the list as a whole is dominated by expensive fee-paying schools. Finally, Keele University has launched the UK's first law undergraduate degree designed to help tackle the climate crisis. The new course in Law with Environmental Sustainability is the first of its kind in the UK. It has been developed to create legal professionals with a good knowledge of environmental obligations on governments and communities. Professor Alison Brammer, head of the School of Law at Keele, said, "The climate crisis affects everyone, and we need legal professionals who understand the issues we face." This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio.
I'd like to point out you're still listening to Teachers Talk Radio. I was wrong-footed there. Usually we got a couple of tech tips on the end, but not anymore. No. We're just going straight to back to me. No Steve this week. What? To be honest, I listened to Steve just to nick some ideas, so I can use them in the week ahead. No Steve this week, so it's back to me, I'm afraid. I've only had half my energy drink now. I don't know if I'm going to make it. Anyway, back to it. So we're talking about Office 365. We're talking about the OG programs, Word, PowerPoint, and some of the newer features that you may or may not know about. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully this is something new. Hopefully you're learning something today. The reason for this show is because I am currently doing a kind of version of this show. Well, I'm doing a version in training courses for staff and students at my place of work, because, as I said, Microsoft has taken the philosophy of integrating lots of assistive technology, lots of really cool things, like slap bang in the package, which is great, because it means that stigma attached to using these certain things, it's not an issue. However, it does mean that they're fairly hidden at some points, so sometimes you can miss them. So yeah, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. I'm still carrying on, for better or for worse. So yeah, talked a little bit about at the top of the show. Talked a little bit about excuse me, the dictation and the transcription feature of the online version of Word. The next thing I'm going to talk about is a brilliant piece of assistive technology. It's fantastic in regards to readability. And I don't often say that. Usually when it comes to assistive technology, I'm like, oh well, this is good and this isn't great. This has quite a lot of downsides, but not in this case. The next tool when it comes to Word, and in fact, pretty much all of the tools when it comes to the free version of Office 365, is something called Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader is Microsoft's readability tool. What it does, it transforms any text into a highly readable version of that text. If you haven't tried it out in Word yet, I really, really recommend it, because it can be an absolute game changer for students who have difficulty in particular and particular problems when it comes to some facets of reading. So best tell you where it is, to be honest, because it's not immediately obvious when you open up a document online. So you open up a Word document, you go to the View option, and it's usually in there. But if it's not in the View option, go to the 3 little dots, and what you're looking for Immersive Reader. So you may be thinking, well, what does Immersive Reader do? So Immersive Reader does a fair few things, which is another reason which I really like it. It's got a wide range of tools within it. First and foremost, it's got a text-to-speech function where you can take a Word document and you can press the play button and you can read the Word document. It highlights the words as you read, so it's got kind of inbuilt dual coding. Is dual coding a thing anymore? Don't really know. It was very much in fashion a couple of years back. But what it does mean, it means that you can read, you can follow what's going on the page, you can listen at the same time. You've got limited options when it comes to the voice. You can speed up the voice, slow down the voice. A lot of my students speed up the voice to kind of 150%, which means that you can still make out, you can kind of still understand what's being said, but it's faster so they can get through the text a little bit faster. You've got a couple of other features as well, male, female voice when it comes to the screen reading. The kind of transformation of the text is really difficult to kind of explain via audio. So I really recommend you have a play around with this particular tool, especially if your school's using Word, because it's great. Honestly, it's great and it's free. And those two things combined make it it's a real big recommendation from me many times in my own job. Just have a look at it. Have a look at it, because not only is it a really good tool, what it shows an underlying thought that's gone into some of the issues that people have with reading. So you've got a text-to-speech function where you press play, you can read whatever's on the screen, which is great if you have it's really good for things like proofreading. Reading back, a computer reading back something that you've already written. It's great for kind of picking out mistakes. But there's all sorts of different reasons why people would use text-to-speech. Visual fatigue. Sometimes you just want to be able to listen to something rather than read. Sometimes reading itself is problematic for various reasons. It's just a really, really good tool that's built in to Word. Some of the other things that you can do, you can change the text size really easily. You can boost it up. You can take it back down. You can increase the spacing in documents. So you can increase the spacing or you can decrease the spacing. What that means, it means that you can make things as readable as possible. You can change and adapt text, and that's really, really important. It's one of the key things in regards to accessibility, being able to change and adapt whatever's in front of you to a particular preference, and this tool helps you to do that. You can change the font. They've got a couple of choices that are widely regarded as good choices for readability. It's got Comic Sans in there, guys. Now people mock Comic Sans relentlessly, but there is some research mumblings that it's quite good when it comes to readability. So don't be cruel. And also you can change the background color within Word to a series of preset colors, or you can choose whatever color that you want in regards to background. How often, when I was a secondary school teacher, having to print stuff on different colored papers, it was a pain. It was a right pain. But what this particular program does, it does it for you. You can just change the background color just like that. No worries whatsoever. It's done. For people who are studying the English language, you can break the text into syllables. You can identify nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and show those labels as you go through. So for students who have English as another language, it can be particularly useful in that respect. Also visually, when it comes to kind of screen readability and adaptability, it has a line focus feature, which means that you can it darkens everything apart from what's on one line or three lines or a paragraph, which means that you can concentrate on on just one point of focus on the screen. A lot of the time, many of my students struggle with a massive amount of text on screen, which is the case in academia. We've got kind of archaic fonts. We've got crushed thing. We've got hundreds of bits of information on the screen, and align focus means that you can concentrate on just a single point. If you use that in tandem with the text-to-speech feature, you can just have the whole document on one line being read to you, and the whole document stays on one line without having to look up and down the page, which can be really, really useful. You got picture dictionary. So if you highlight a word, you turn the picture dictionary on, and it will give you a pictorial representation of what that word means. Not only useful for unknown words, very useful for things like homophones, words that are similar sounding but have different spelling, so you can make sure you get the right one. You got a translate feature. You can translate a document. You can translate a whole document into a range of different languages, or you can translate particular words into different languages. And I just think that's great. It's in there. It's in there. They're not making a big deal about it, but it's available, and it's good, and it works. Works particularly in Word documents. So there are certain limitations. If you use the Edge browser, you can use Immersive Reader within online material, and in some cases PDFs if you open a PDF using the Edge browser. But just having all these things, back in the day, you'd have to use a separate program. You have to buy a separate program to get some of this functionality, but not anymore. And I'm always, it makes me happy. It makes me happy that there's thought that's gone into the fact that there are some people, when it comes to reading, that need, excuse me hitting my microphone there, that need certain help, and that certain help has been integrated into the package, and they're like, yay, yeah, that's fantastic, good stuff, good stuff. Speaking of accessibility, and this is the last one we're going to be looking at in reference to Word, but this is also in relation to a number of other products. Accessibility is important, and accessibility should be, you've got to think about accessibility if you're creating materials. You really, really do. Schools have to, HE institutions definitely have to, due to certain regulations. But accessible material, in regards to accessible on a screen, is, it's really, really important. It's really important. If you give something that's not accessible to certain assistive technology, it means that you are limiting people who need to use that technology. It's simple as that. So, Word and other Office 365 products comes with a check accessibility feature, which means that what it does, basically, it looks at your document and then it identifies if there are any particular accessibility issues, such as weak color contrast, such as the unnecessary use of extremely complicated language, which, that's useful, or particularly, it's useful for getting your point across, not necessarily useful for academic reading and so on and so forth, but still. It also, and this is one of the big things, it also tells you if you've been using labeling correctly. Now, if you use a screen reader, for instance, JAWS, NVDA, one of the native screen readers for Windows or for Apple. Screen readers are primarily used by people with visual impairment and blindness, but can be used by all manner of people. If you don't label a document properly, if you don't tell, it's a bit of a strange one if you don't know, but if you don't tell the document that this is a heading, this is a title, this is a subheading, this is an image, this is what the image contains, then those things aren't communicated to somebody using a screen reader. I'll probably do it. I might as well do kind of like a whole show on kind of accessibility wins, probably a little bit later on, possibly next year. But if you're not specific in your labeling of the the various elements on your document, then it's very difficult for a screen reader to read what those things are. In fact, in some cases, you may miss certain things. And in some cases, it means that documents are unreadable. If you have an image that is that's essential to the meaning of a text, but you don't use alt text to describe what that image is. So, for instance, thinking back to my teaching days, such as an image in a English language paper, a mock paper. If you don't have a alt text version of that image, then a screen reader will just read it as image, won't give you any details. So the accessibility checker in Word and other Office 365 documents acts as a starting point and tells you, it says, oi, you need to tell people that this is a heading, or oi, you need to tell people that, you've got an image here that you've not labeled. It's not the be all and end all when it comes to accessibility, but it's a really good start. It's a really good start. If you're a teacher out there, if you're in an admin role, if you're producing documentation, please think about accessibility. And if you're not too sure, what that involves, the check accessibility feature, which is in the review, you press review in Word and you go to check accessibility. It gives you a view. It tells you why as well, and that's really important. It doesn't just say change this, because then you'll keep making the same mistakes. It gives you some information as to why you have to change it to ensure that your document is accessible. And you've got, you're trying to reach as many people. I'm assuming you're trying to reach as many people as possible when you're creating your learning materials, when you're creating promotional materials, whatever document you're creating. You got to make it accessible as possible, and you've got a tool in Word that's there for free that can kind of start you off on that journey, and society will thank you for it. It's I spend an inordinate amount of time in my job trying to find ways to make inaccessible documents more accessible. It comes part and parcel of being an assistive technology advisor, that you come to documentation that can't be used by a screen reader, and then you have to go through a certain conversion, and so on and so forth. But if you think about accessibility at source, if you think about it when you're creating something, then it makes life so much easier for people who need it the most, and that's really, really important. So the check accessibility feature, it's available in Word, Office 365 free version, available in Word, available in PowerPoint, available in Excel, I believe. I'll have to check that. I'm going to have to take a run up at Excel because I hate it. I'm really sorry. There are Excel wizards out there. I've got a colleague who is fantastic at Excel, and it's amazing the things that you can do with it. But I've never got a massive handle on that particular thing. So I've kept Excel for next week so I can do a little bit of research, create myself a little cheat sheet, as it were. But check accessibility. If you're not checking accessibility of your document, why not? Why not? The tool is there. It's free. It gives you a heads up as to why the document may be inaccessible. But the other thing when it comes to accessibility is use a style. Make sure your headings are labeled as headings, make sure your titles labeled as titles, and you'll just make you'll make it easier for people who use certain technologies like screen readers to just orientate themselves within the document, figure out what's important information, get all you do it done. If you have not been doing it, don't worry about it too much, but do it now. Do it now. So, excuse me, I'm just going to have a little cough here. My breath's just frozen. So that's some of the features of Word. So we've looked at the dictation and the transcription feature. I believe dictation's free on Office. Transcription's a premium feature. But dictation, what you can do if you want to transcribe certain things, you have to do it live. You can just play a PC sound source or play an MP3, and if the computer can hear it, it will write it out in Word. Immersive Reader, fantastic readability tool, really fully featured, integrated really well into the program. And if you want to ensure that you're making steps towards accessibility of your documentation, you've got an accessibility checker built in. What up, Bob's your uncle? I mean, how good is that? How good is that? This kind of stuff has changed so much since when I began. Absolute, it's still not there yet. We don't live in a perfect world, but at least there has been, or there is seeming to be thought, especially from the major corporations, Microsoft, Google, about how to make these products as accessible as possible, and that can only be a good thing, in my opinion. So, yeah, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so Office 365. Accessibility features, lesser known features, really, really good. We're going to move away from Word. We're going to move away from Word for the moment, and we're going to go to the other the other one that people, teaching. Is there a controversy in teaching about the use of PowerPoints in the classroom? I mean, I'm off social media, and when I was on there was like this whole thing about, is PowerPoint a useful tool for teaching? Is it overused? Is it not used enough? Don't use PowerPoints or something. I don't really know the arguments about that, the pedagogical arguments about the use of PowerPoint. And if I'm going to be brutally honest, I don't really care. I use PowerPoints for information transmission in lots of different situations. If you use it in the classroom, fair dinkum. If you don't, also fair dinkum. But in the last tool that I'm going to discuss, I'm going to discuss it in regards to, well, it was a really big issue when I was a teacher. Speaking and listening. I had speaking and listening assessments when I was a teacher. And you had to assess certain things. You had to assess things like clarity of speech. You had to assess knowledge. You had to assess all these different things. And it's not something that quite a lot of students enjoy. We think about, how many students, and it's weird because you got students who would like talk like endlessly at a drop of a hat in class about anything, absolutely anything. It would be just a unfettered river of speech sometimes. You like students in the past that I've had, there have been verbose doesn't even cover it. I mean, they will talk about whatever subject at length, whether they've been asked or not, whatever activity is going on. And that's sometimes that's fine, sometimes it's a little problematic. But then it was often the case where these students, the very same students as well, when it came to giving a presentation where they had to speak, and they'd shut up, and it was about the only time they'd ever shut up. And you're like, oh God, I know you can speak. I have to listen to you practically every day talk about nothing endlessly, and now you're up here and I'm trying to assess your speaking skills. You've got them, please use them. And it's about unfamiliarity of that particular environment. It's about peer pressure. Goodness me, public speaking is a pain. I'm all right with it to a certain extent, because I've had enough practice. I was a teacher, so you have to speak. I did like consultancy. You had to, you go to things where you like speakers, where you're the speaker and you have to do that. You have to do something. But it's never pleasant. It's anxiety inducing. And it's one of the big triggers for a lot of my students now, and these students are past school age. And so when it comes to students, secondary school and so on and so forth, it's tough. It's tough to stand up there and talk about whatever it is that you have to talk about in a formal way. But you have to do it. there's going to be times where you have to speak publicly, dependent on whatever job you go into or whatever. And public oration is a valuable skill in anyway, but it's a difficult one, especially when it comes to the pressures when you're a kid, pressures of speaking in front of an audience. And yeah, the verbose shut up and it's tough. It used to be like pulling teeth when I was a teacher, but pulling teeth out of somebody who's had their mouth shut. Sometimes just to get a rest, I said I would just kind of have a speaking and listening activity just so I could get some peace and quiet, Anyway, so to help along with this particular problem, PowerPoint, the presentation software, if you go to the if you go to the slideshow button on the ribbon, you've got a chance here, and this is it's fairly new. I don't know how long they've had it, to be honest, but you have a chance to rehearse. Now, this only works if you are willing to take criticism from the program. I don't know about you. I'm not the best at criticism. I think I'm brilliant, to be honest, pretty much all of the time. Apparently, according to my family, that's not necessarily the case. But what happens is that you can go to rehearse with coach. What that means is that you can bring up your slideshow, and then the computer will listen. The program will listen to you as you speak, and it will tell you if there are certain things that may be improved. So, for instance, if you're speaking too fast, it will say you're speaking too fast. If you're speaking too slow, it will say you're speaking too slow. If you're repeating certain phrases as kind of gaps in your speech, it will tell you that. If you're saying too much, it will tell you you're saying too much. That's the one that's the one that it particularly identifies when I have a go running this particular feature. Apparently I say quite a fair bit, and now I'm thinking about it, I'm really self-conscious about saying for the rest of this show. But yeah, now what's the benefit of that? Well, practice. It's really, really difficult to get an idea of how you speak and to get an idea of certain things to improve if you don't practice. But the thing is, sometimes, traditionally you practice in front of somebody and they give you tips. However, that in itself can be prohibitive because you don't want other people to listen to you. So in this case, what you have is you have a computer system that does it for you. And I like that. As I say, it can be a little bit on the critical side. It's, I wouldn't call it a critical friend. I just call it a critic. It doesn't try and sugar the pill. It says, you may be doing this, and I think to myself, you don't mean may do your PowerPoint. You think I am doing this. And it's quite accurate. I don't know. Now, this is the thing, though. Everyone's different, so I don't know how the algorithm identifies what's good, what's not, what's too slow, what's too fast. But it does. But everybody's different. So when it comes to public speaking, when it comes to trying to diminish the anxiety around public speaking, practicing is a good thing. And we've got a tool in PowerPoint now where you can just rehearse your speech. You can go through your slideshow, bring up your slides. Tendency usually is to speak extremely fast and that was the big one when it was speaking and listening. It was, I've got 12 slides. I was like, great, that'll last you 10 minutes. Will it Ecker's like? Kid'll have gone through like 4 of them within 30 seconds, but so, things like talk speed, things like the gaps between words, those kind of things, having it feels judgmental, but having a non-judgmental facility for feedback in regards to speaking and listening, I think it's really a benefit. Speaking and listening activities, practicing when further education, vocational education, these kind of things. It's important to have this facility in lots of different in lots of different spheres of life. And it's nice that it's just a computer, and although as annoying as I find it when a computer is telling me that I'm saying too much, oh no, hang on, does it identify as well? To be honest, I mean, if I can't say or it's just going to be dead space for like 50% of this show, isn't it? Anyway, so yeah, PowerPoint presentations, really, really good when it comes to rehearsal. Let me just check again. I'm just going to get rid of, so rehearse with coach. It's in the slideshow section. You press on the slideshow button, rehearse with coach is there. Now there's a body language button here that I've not actually seen that before. I'm going to have a look into that because I don't necessarily know what that is, and I'm intrigued. Does it use a camera to gauge your body language? I don't know. That's really that's intriguing. Oh, breaking news, ladies and gentlemen! There's a body language function here in PowerPoint. I'm not too sure how that works. I'll have a look into that and get back to you. But that's interesting. Some of the other strange things when it comes to some of the things that I've mentioned in the show, the speech-to-text function, the dictation function in Word and the other programs, has the facility to blank out swear words, and it censors any swear words that you may dictate into. I've tested this at length. And it identifies naughty language and blanks it out, and I'm still yet to think about why they'd have that facility, unless it was kind of like live transcription or something along those lines. But yeah, it stars out any swear words. I won't list the a really good time talking at your computer in incredibly abusive terms and just see. But that's one of the things that it does. It's one of the options that's kind of front and center. So they must believe that, in fact, they must believe that people do that quite a lot, and there's definitely situations where that's not a good thing. But yeah, it can censor you. I'm not into that kind of censorship, to be honest. I don't really like it. I mean what I say, even if what I say is like really, really rude. So yeah, those are some of the lesser known features in regards to the Office 365 package. Just going to do a little bit of a summary of what we've spoken about so far. For anybody that's joined us a little bit late. So Office 365, the free package that you sign up with an email, and then you can use the online tools. Word has some really good assistive technology. It has dictation that's fairly accurate, of course. Once again, dictation's never going to be 100% accurate. There is concern when it comes to the lack of accuracy of certain words, but through the editing process, you can kind of, I say to students when they're dictating or when they're starting dictating and they've not used it before, I ask, I tell them, just talk. Don't edit as you go through, just talk, because otherwise you end up with a whole mess of things that you didn't mean to say. But fairly accurate straight off the bat. You can speak into the computer. It'll write out what you say. You can also use different sound sources, and if the computer can hear that sound source, it'll write out whatever that sound source is. Immersive Reader, really, really good readability tool, designed for lots and lots of difficulties, lots of tools to help with difficulties with reading. You can change background color. You can use text to speech. You can use line focus, which is basically like, showing my age here, basically like a reading ruler on the screen, if you're kind of having difficulty conceptualizing what it looks like. And also, in regards to accessibility for people creating documents, there's an accessibility checker built into Word. Moving on to PowerPoint. PowerPoint has those features. It has dictate feature. It has an accessibility checker as well, because it's not just Word documents that you'll need to check for accessibility. It's all documents. I don't know why I just went, ooh. I'm not padding out the show. I'm trying to emphasize that accessibility is important for all documentation, digital documentation. That's what I'm doing. So yeah, PowerPoint has a rehearsal feature where you can practice your presentation, and it will give you tips as to the speed of speech, the use of filler words, the use of repeated phrases, and so on and so forth, just to give people an extra bit of confidence when they go out and do the real thing, because, you know, it's nerve-wracking public speaking. And in my own experience, when it comes to teaching, students find it incredibly, well, many students, you know, you don't want to make crass generalizations, but many students find speaking and listening activities in whatever form that they may present themselves, they find it difficult. One more feature in regards to the slideshow option, and in regards to certain things. Excuse me, I'm fiddling around with the program as I do the show. I really shouldn't do that. I really shouldn't fiddle around with the programs as I am doing the show. The rehearsal. Producer Tom, I never even knew about the PP rehearsal. Yeah, it's a really good feature. Just takes the stigma away from having somebody in front of you telling you about what you should or what you shouldn't be doing when it comes to speech. You know, and that's quite important. I haven't touched on certain things such as captioning and so on, but I think I'll look at that a little bit later on, because that's not necessarily a native feature when it comes to Office 365, the full version. I'm just gonna check if it is actually. You know, we can do a little bit of live check in here. No, I don't think it is a native feature, but I'll get back to you on that one if I'm wrong. So what am I saying, really? What I'm saying is that even now, with the most kind of, I don't want to say, mundane software, the stuff that we use every day, the stuff that we see every day, you know, the things that, I mean, it's almost as if we don't see certain programs anymore, Word, PowerPoint, because they are so used. And sometimes it's of a benefit to kind of just refresh yourself with these tools, because what it means that you find certain things that may be useful for yourself or for the people that you teach. So, you know, and it's not necessarily, people don't necessarily have the time. And these things aren't necessarily immediately front and center. They're not immediately obvious. So, but they're there and they're free. And that it's one of the things that I love about my job. But it's one of the things that also means that it's quite difficult, because a lot of my time I'm saying, did you know that there's this thing? And it's there. I'm afraid there's no call-ins tonight due to me not being massively confident about the technology that I'm using at this point in time. All apologies, but if you want to leave comments on Podbean Live, you're more than welcome. If you want to leave a comment on Twitter at TT Radio 2022, I believe. Oh, God, I hope I've got that right. Yeah, please do. It's really, really nice to get people's opinions. If there's anything that I've missed on these two particular programs we've looked at tonight, let me know. It's been very assistive technology heavy. The edit features, the classic blue line, red line, spelling and grammar, still there. There's some very, very smart features for the paid for options, but I'm not going to go into that because, well, you have to pay for them. And many people don't have that facility. So we'll stick to the free version of the tool that we're discussing tonight. So what I'm saying is that there are options available when it comes to assistive technology that are readily available and are integrated into certain platforms. Microsoft have done a really, really good job in regards to integrating assistive technology into their Office 365 package. And, I say assistive technology, it's just technology. Dictation features, just technology. Ensuring that you can rehearse, it's just technology. And it works, it's solid, and it gives people a little bit of a leg up when it comes to some of the very common programs that you use day to day, whether you're in schools, whether you're in other educational institutions. I mean, the reason I concentrated on Office 365 today is because I get like the full paid for package at work. And I'm trying to talk about what I know. But as I say, what I'm going to do is I'll have a look at other packages as well, because this thing is becoming more and more common. It's becoming more and more integrated. Assistive technology is becoming more and more integrated. And as I said before, it's great that it's integrated, but it does mean that perhaps sometimes people don't know that things are there. And that's, it's unfortunate, but I think it's kind of a payoff in regards to the integration, in regards to not having to go to different places to use different programs. Now, I'm not saying, to be honest, let me make this very clear, because it has sounded a little bit like a Microsoft loving this show. So what I'm saying is, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. And I am concentrating on the Microsoft products because, that's what I've got available. That's kind of what I know about at the moment. But what I mean is that there are disadvantages. There are things that aren't perfect in regards to programs, and there's certainly lots of issues in regards to accessibility for many, many different programs. But the integration of certain assistive technologies within the Office 365 package, for me, represents a change of thinking. It represents a shift from seeing this technology as an extra, seeing it as an add-on, seeing it as something away from the norm, to being part of the norm, to being part and parcel of what should be offered in regards to digital technology. I think that's a good thing. I think that is a shift in viewpoint, a shift in culture in regards to digital technology, and in regards to a shift in mindset. It has come on leaps and bounds. Last 10 years. I mean, some of this is to do with levers, and some of this is to do with, carrots and sticks, and to do with sticks, and to do with directives and things like that. But there has been a move to place technology that helps people use technology within the technology itself. When I started out, all of these things, you would have to go to many different places, many different digital locations, buy extra programs. This wasn't packaged with lots of the things that students, staff used. And now we're getting to the point where it is. And I think that's great. That's really, really, really good. Got a couple of messages on the feed before we finish up. Thank you very much for. So we got Mesa M. I hope I pronounced that right, Mesa. I'm not native and I read a lot, but I don't know how I activate new vocabulary. I study a lot, but I forget. Now, one of the features in the premium version of Word is a formality adapter, which means that it looks at different ways of saying certain things. To be honest, I'm not the resident expert in that particular respect, mate. So I can't really give you like solid advice in regards to learning new vocabulary. Apart from just the kind of general, just reading as much as you can, but yeah, so yeah, it is sometimes that is a difficult issue. The picture dictionary feature in regards to immersive reader is helpful in about identification of the meaning of words, especially if you read a definition of a word, and even though you read a definition, it's still not particularly clear. But apart from that, yeah, it is a difficult one. And if you do find a good way of doing it, let me know. So Office 365, that's the start of our Office 365 journey. We are now pretty much halfway there. There's a couple of other things I'm going to be looking at next week. I'm going to be looking at, in particular, Excel. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I'm going to be looking at to-do lists, or the to-do facility that comes free with Office 365. Purely because in regards to productivity and memory and organization, to-do lists have been a big recommendation in my day-to-day job for students who have difficulty with those things: academic productivity, organization, timekeeping, remembering. I myself have certain difficulties regarding what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. So we'll be looking at that. We've got producer Tom says, is to-do better than Notion? Depends on what you're using it for. I use to-do in my daily work as a way to prioritize lots of different tasks and to help me remember that those tasks exist and I have to do them. I suffer quite a lot from overwhelm when it comes to things like having lots of different things to do. Figured out where they got the name. And listing is one of the major ways that I can organize my day-to-day life. To-do is really good because it integrates into other products such as Outlook, Calendar, and a range of other products. Oh, next week we're also going to be looking at OneNote as well, because you get OneNote free. And OneNote, in regards to academic productivity and organization, is a fantastic way to capture information really, really easily. And we'll be looking at another different way. Not at all, Messer Man. I mean, that wasn't a great answer to that. Thank you for asking. I'm sorry I didn't come up with something a little bit better for you, but hopefully things get easier. So thank you very much for listening to me on this Sunday evening, a very, very, very cold Sunday evening here in an attic in Leeds. As I said at the top of the show, many of you got 1 week left. Keep at it, guys. If you get a chance, I know, good God, I know that, time is very much of the essence. But if you sat down in front of Word having to tap out another document, have a little play with what's available. Have a little press of these buttons. Maybe you just think, what's that appeared a couple of weeks ago? What is it? Just have a little press, because the tools are there, and some of these tools can make your own life easier. Some of these tools can definitely make your students' life easier, and they're readily available and they're free. It's just knowing where to look for them. So yeah, next week we'll be looking at Excel. And we will also be looking at the to-do feature offered by Office 365. And we'll also be looking at OneNote. OneNote's a big one. OneNote's really, the obvious equivalent to OneNote is Evernote. But because of the move, especially in higher education, because of the move to digital sources of information, being able to have a facility that can capture digital sources of information and rearrange that information easily in a fashion where it can be found easily, where it can be linked to other information, where you can think about linking things, you can think about the links between disparate subjects and so on and so forth. OneNote is really, really good for that. So we'll have a look at that. We'll have a look at that as well next week. But I would just like to say thank you very much to you all out there for listening as our Sunday night show draws to a close. If you have any comments or if you want to ask any questions, please whack it on TT Radio Twitter feed. And I will see you again next week. Just keep warm, people. Keep warm. If you're out on the playground duty, make sure you got your thermals on. All right? So thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you soon.